Okay, I think we're now being recorded. So welcome to the CIPFA Portfolio webinar. I'm going to show you first of all how to get your account if you haven't yet got a CIPFA Portfolio account. Okay, so to get your portfolio account, we need your line manager's details, because the way the portfolio works is that you complete your experience and so on online, and then your manager shows you online, goes in online and signs off what you've done. Okay, so the way you get yourself a login with CIPFA Portfolio is to go to your My CIPFA account. So you might recognise this as your My CIPFA profile. Okay, so this is Aga's one. You go down to the bottom, My Qualifications. You do My Qualification, manage your qualification progression. Okay, click go on that. And in here, scroll down. My Training Manager and My Line Manager. Okay, so if you log in and you see this where it says none selected, particularly for your line manager, that's where you need to fill in your line manager details. Okay, so you need to click change here, fill in your line manager details. That's basically what we use to tell us that you want a CIPFA Portfolio account, because we've never routinely taken line manager details before, but we need them for this. So if you were to go in and put in your line manager details, that's how we know that you're after a CIPFA Portfolio account. Many of you will have done this already. Just as an aside, the training manager, the one above, is an optional field. So that might be somebody who, say, looks after, booking your exams for you or bits and pieces. So they're people who can view your portfolio, but they won't be able to sign it off. So the line manager is the person who signs off your details and so on. Okay, so that's what you need to do. You need to go in, My Line Manager, and change it and fill in your line manager details there, and we'll give you a portfolio account. If you already have one and you need to change your line manager, you can't just do it here. You need to contact student support, because they'll need to go and change it in the back end of the system. Okay, so that's how you get your login details. Once you've got a login, you go to the CIPFA Portfolio screen here. So I'm just going to get Aga to log in for me here. So you will be sent 2 emails when you get your portfolio account. It will say what your login name is, which will be your email, and it will give you a password. It will be a temporary password, so the first time you sign in, you'll need to change it. Please remember what you've changed it to, because it's not that straightforward to change it. There's not a just click to forgotten password thing. You'd need to contact student support and everything. So try and remember what you've changed it to. Aga's just logging in for me now. Incidentally, if you sign up your line manager as well, then your line manager will get the same 2 emails. They'll get their login details, and in a separate email they'll get their password. So that's how they get in to have a look at what you've been doing. Okay, so this is your dashboard. When you first log in, this will be blank. So everything will be this kind of faded purple colour to say you haven't completed anything yet. And this pie chart down the bottom will just be completely grey, incomplete. I'll talk you through what each of these sections means now. So the first thing to note is your knowledge. So this is your kind of overview of your qualification. Your knowledge section down here in the left-hand side is your exams. So you might recognise the names of your exams. So that will all be blank as well, even if you've completed exams. It's not currently possible for us to get this to reflect what we've got in our systems, which exams you've passed, and particularly exemptions and that kind of thing. So the way you complete this knowledge section, I will show you in a bit when we go into, well, I'll show you now actually. So into the portfolio section, knowledge at the bottom here. Okay, so at the bottom here, so we've got completed 58%. In order to fill in your knowledge section, you need to go to upload evidence, and you fill in, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to move around this thing in the top. So there we go, right. So select a unit from the list. So knowledge is where your exams sit, and this shows you what areas you can upload. You'll only use full for knowledge because you've either passed the exam or you haven't, so you won't ever have partial completion on this one. I'll show you partial completion later. Let's say you've completed the case study. I think that's one we haven't yet completed on this profile. You just need to type in, so something like SCS exam, and you can say pass, December 2017. Pass, and whatever your mark was, if you want to, you can put that in there. If you want to choose a file to upload, that's particularly useful. Say if you've got exemptions and you've got an exemptions letter from CIPFA, you could choose a file to upload. You don't have to though for this. So we presume your line managers probably know what you've got in your exams, or they've been notified, or you can notify them. So you just choose a date that you've produced this evidence, and that's been created. Okay, that will then get submitted to your line manager. They will have to sign it off. So you can't just go in and say you passed exams you haven't passed. Your line manager will need to go in and sign it off. So we've got previous ones we've done here that line managers have signed off. So this BCM one that we put in previously, the line manager went in and said, yep, evidence accepted, signed off. Okay. So that's how you fill in your knowledge section. You will need to do that for all the exams you've passed and any you've got exemptions for. And then as you go through, you can fill in, each time you get your exam results, you can go in and fill them in. Okay. And they will show on here. So these are the ones that the line manager has signed off. You'll see strategic case study isn't showing as complete yet. That's because I've just done it. The line manager hasn't signed it off. So nothing shows on this dashboard until your line manager has signed it off. So that's a question we get quite a lot. I've submitted something, why doesn't it show on the dashboard? It's because of that, okay? It's because you need to wait for your line manager to sign it off, or you need to let them know that they need to go in and start signing things off for you. Okay, so that's your knowledge section. That's how you complete your exams, okay? The next thing, I'll start with the logbook, as it's something that you could start probably earlier. Sorry, just dealing with a feedback issue there. Okay, so logbook. Your logbook is where you complete 400 days of experience. Okay, so you need to evidence what you've been doing in your work day. So this doesn't include time spent at college. It's just what you've done at work. And you need to go in and you need to allocate it against these statement of expertise areas. Now, the statement of expertise is CIPFA-wide, so it applies to members and students, and it tells you the sorts of things that CIPFA members might get up to in their jobs. Okay, so when you do CPD, you'll be thinking about the statement of expertise when you're already a member, so we get you thinking about it when you're a student. If you look at your membership handbook, the membership handbook has more details about the statement of expertise. So does the CIPFA portfolio guide, which you'll have had in the original email signing up for the CIPFA portfolio. You can also find that on our webpage. Okay, so you need to allocate it against the statement of expertise area. Now, when we first had paper PEP, we used to have certain guidelines around how many days you need in each area. We've scrapped those now. The reason being that we have students and members in very, very different roles. I think the nature of CIPFA and the fact that it's public sector, the fact that we have some auditors, we have a lot of different roles that people are doing. Our auditors in particular tend to get quite exercised about this and say, well, you know, everything I do is audit, so how am I supposed to get the other 7? So we don't have any minimum requirements on these. So you don't have to tick all 8. You don't have to log days against all 8. We do say ideally we want to see breadth of experience. So if you have something that you do that could be classified somewhere else, so for instance, you might be an auditor, but you might do minutes review or something like that at a client, then you might be able to put that under, say, governance, ethics and values, or leadership maybe, or if you've got someone reporting to you, you could put it under leadership, just so that you can try and show a bit of breadth of experiences, you know, a bit more interesting for you and for us to see it that. But we haven't got any minimum requirements for that. Okay, so you just choose which one you think it goes against. Don't worry too much. We get a lot of queries saying, oh, I don't know if it's financial and performance reporting or it's procurement or whatever. Just decide for yourself which one you think it is and put it in. That's not going to be something that is a difference between passing and failing if you've classified something wrongly. Okay, so try and get a breadth of experience across these things. The way you start one of these, I need to just move my panels over again so I can access this. You add entry here in the top right, so the add entry button. So let's do one for audit, because we haven't got anything for audit yet. So maybe you're not an auditor, but maybe you have dealt with internal audit in your department, or you assisted internal audit. So let's say we assisted internal audit on payables review or something like that. Okay. In your learning outcomes and future application box, we don't want massive, because obviously you're going to have a lot of entries in this log potentially, depending how much varied work you do. So just maybe a paragraph of description here about what you learned and how you can use it in the future. So we want your log to be reflective. It's not just here's what I did, it's here's what went well, here's what went badly, and here's how I could use it again in the future. So you might say, I did X, Y, Z, and then in the future, I could use this knowledge to, etc., etc. Okay, so there's maybe a paragraph's worth in there, depending how. If it's only 1 or 2 days, because you did something for 1 day or 2 days, you could write a bit less. If you're putting in an entry for 60 days where you did a big project, you could write a bit more. Okay, so let's say we did that for a couple of weeks, total of 10 days, let's say, and then you can either save it and come back to it later and update it. So if you just start rubbish in this box like I have and you want to come back and change it later, just save it and it won't go to the line manager. Or you can submit and that goes off to the line manager. So these blobs here show you whether you've created it. So there's some that we've created, we've just saved them, we haven't submitted them yet. Submitted, and then the ones the line manager has signed off. So there's someone here we did earlier, show as approved. Okay. And similarly to the knowledge area, that first one that I've just done there, that won't show in my pie chart of days until the line manager's gone in and signed it off. Okay. So if we look at one the line manager has signed off, gone in, approved. They can't give you feedback on these. They will give you feedback if they reject it, but for these they just approve them. Okay. Now, a question we get quite a lot is, what if I started my paper PEP and I've got 100 days of a previous line manager and they've now left the organisation and I don't know how they're supposed to sign all of this off. We've added a record of prior achievement tab. Okay, so if you open this here, add entry, there's the 8 statement of expertise areas, there's then a 9th area which is record of prior achievement. So that's where, if you choose that, it slightly changes the input box. So you have to choose a file and you write in what it is and when you did it, and then you upload it. Okay. So I'll show you a couple we did down here. So one of them we did as if we were an AAT member, because an AAT member gets some days off from the log. They only have to do 200, not 400. So AAT member, and you have to, well, this person hasn't, but you have to choose a file. You'd have to just upload your AAT certificate or something like that, and then submit it to your line manager. Alternatively, this is the sort of thing you do if you had a previous employer. So you might have moved employers, actually, and you might have got your PEPs signed off by your previous employer. You can upload that here, total number of days in. Your current line manager will still need to sign it off. So there's still kind of a check on it. So they will check it, they'll check that everything's been signed and everything. If it is a paper copy that you've scanned and uploaded, it will need to be hand signed, as the paper PEP used to have to be hand signed. Okay, so you can do all of that. The other question linked to this is, what if your line manager changes? If your line manager changes, I would do all of your entries as we've done here up until the date when your line manager is going to change. Get your line manager to sign it off, and then contact us to change your line manager on the system, and then your new line manager can sign everything off going forward. That's probably the best way to do it. Alternatively, if that ship sailed and it's your current line manager that's already on here, then do it with the paper log the way I've shown you there in the previous record of prior achievement. Okay, so I'll just go back to the dashboard to show you how it links in. This, in the bottom right hand corner, this pie chart, this is your logbook. Okay, so this is the things that we've already got signed off. So the big red section is the 100 days that's previously been signed off. We've signed off a few bits and pieces, but you'll see there's nothing here for audit because that 10 days I've just put in hasn't been signed off by the line manager yet. Okay, so you need to get your line manager to sign everything off, and then this will be complete. Okay. If you want to put in more than 400 days, you can, but you don't have to. 400 days is what we need. If you end up putting in more than that, then that's okay. It will allow you to do that, and it will allow your line managers to sign them off. It might make the pie chart look a bit strange, but it will allow you to do that, okay? So that's the logbook. Just as a note, if you have been using the old paper PEP, then that entry screen for the logbook has the same headings. So if you've got like a handful of entries on an old spreadsheet, you can copy them in very easily because it's got the same headings as the previous logbook in the PEP. Okay. So that is the bottom section of this, your knowledge, so that's your exams, and your statement of expertise, which is your logbook. The top section is your skills and behaviours, which replaced the evidence activities in the previous PEP. So your skills and behaviours, there are 10 things that you have to achieve that are considered to be skills that a professional accountant needs. So these are things you have to achieve by the end of your training period. So I wouldn't expect you in the first 6 months with CIPFA to go in and be saying you've fully achieved all of these. There might be one or two you might have fully achieved, but it's more likely that most of them you'll be ticking off towards the sort of third year of your training and beyond. Okay, so the skills are in the portfolio section. Okay, so similar to what we did with the knowledge with the exams, we upload evidence for these. So let's select behaviours. I think we've got less of those done. So behaviours, so perhaps you need to select something that you've done at work that you think proves that you've achieved these things. Okay, so there's more detail about what they involve in the CIPFA portfolio guide, but there's a little description here so you can see what they're about. So something like ethics and integrity, for instance, identifies ethical dilemmas, understands the implications and behaves appropriately. Now, let's say, for instance, that internal audit that we assisted with, there was a particular issue where senior management were putting pressure on staff about something. You could fill that in here. Okay, now obviously you'd have to be a bit cautious with kind of confidentiality and stuff. You can anonymise in here if you need to, particularly if you're an auditor or a consultant who works with clients. You don't have to give the client's name. Okay, you can say a large NHS trust or whatever. But let's say ethical challenges in internal audit. So the description would be something fairly brief as well. I'm just going to put the same in there for now. But and then you'd need to write, and this is where we want a little bit more from you. So this is probably more than a paragraph on each of these things, a couple of paragraphs probably, to describe the ethical issues that you faced, what were the implications, how did you behave appropriately. So you can use this stuff on the left-hand side as sort of a bit of an essay plan, really. So what were the ethical dilemmas? What were the implications of those? How did you behave appropriately? You should be thinking back as well to your CIPFA studies and what you've learned and what you've signed up to. So you've got things like the CIPFA Ethical Code, which is covered in FA, but is also here in your membership handbook Code of Ethics on the web page. That will tell you what CIPFA's specific Code of Ethics is, what the threats are, and so on. If you can use the language from that, then that's great. So we want probably a few paragraphs in here. Okay, I'm not going to do it now, obviously. It might be useful if you write them out in sort of Microsoft Word or something, edit them and then copy them in. You can do that. That's easy, or you can type them straight into here. You can choose a file then as well. So these skills and behaviours should be evidenced. So you shouldn't just write, I did this and I was great and it went really well, and then submit it. You should have some kind of file that you upload. So it might be a few emails, an email from your line manager saying you did this work really well, well done. It might be the final report if it was a project or again an audit assignment. It might be an anonymised report to upload. It's something to basically prove that you did it and that you showed these skills. Okay, so we will use both what you write in the details section and what you upload to verify that you've achieved that skill and that it was you and your own work that did it. Okay. Now it's possible, here you tick, let's say we think we fully achieved that. It's possible that you will have achieved more than one for each piece of evidence as well. So you could write a couple of paragraphs on ethics and integrity, and then in the same piece of work, you develop professional scepticism, let's say, but maybe you still think you've got to work on that, so you've done partial. But you can write a couple of paragraphs on each in here, so a couple on ethics, a couple on professional scepticism. It's built to be flexible, so if you wanted to, you can do 10 separate entries for the 10 different skills and behaviours, or you could do 20 different entries to show how you've developed, particularly for apprentices, that might apply to you. Or you could end up doing less than 10 because you've written in great detail about how you've achieved a couple at once. Okay, so it's flexible. It's more flexible than the previous evidence activities because you could do this with smaller chunks of work. You could do it with great big projects. So we're trying to make sure that this is applicable to whatever your job role might be. Okay, but anyway, so you select on this left-hand side which behaviours and skills you think you've achieved, fully achieved that, partially achieved that, and then you can save or cancel. Just to note, we've got a request in with our developer to change this so that we can have a save, submit and cancel like on the previous logbook thing, so that at the moment if you hit save it will go straight to your line manager. So that's why I say maybe for now it might be best to do it in Microsoft Word and then save it, but we've got a request in to change that. So evidence created successfully, so that's gone off to your line manager. Again, if you go back to your dashboard and have a look at your skills and behaviours, ethics and integrity is still not complete because your manager hasn't seen it yet. Okay, so those are the 10 skills and behaviours that you have to achieve. As I say, it's probably a couple of paragraphs on each. So if it's one piece of evidence achieving 2 things, then you're going to need probably several paragraphs to explain what you did and why it achieves a couple of different things. Okay. Sorry, I've just got some interference. I'm just trying to check that everybody's muted.
It says 37.5 hours worked in 4 days.
Everybody should be muted, so I'm not sure why I can hear talking and stuff, but I think that's fixed it now. Can I just check that everyone can still hear me? Brilliant, thank you guys. Okay, so that is your logbook, your portfolio skills and behaviours, and your exams and how you complete those things. Okay, just to show you a couple of other things in here, there's an actions section. You won't get many actions. This is more for the line managers. So when you've submitted things, your line manager's actions section will say you need to review this, you need to sign off that, you need to look at this piece of evidence and so on. You may get actions when they've sent something back to you saying, I think you need to have another look at this, or they've rejected something maybe because they think it's not appropriate. So that's where your action section, so that will show things that you need to complete that have come back from your line manager. There's also a messages section here. So this shows you all of the messages from your line manager. So when they've signed something off, they've left you feedback. You can see there's that top one, by the way, is only applicable to apprentices. So don't worry if you're not an apprentice, you won't have an assessor coach, which is what that top one's about. But the rest of them, your line manager's left you feedback for your oral presentation. Your line manager's left you feedback for your exam passed. And then there'll be ones in there as well that say, actually, no, you need to go back and have another look at this. But it will let you know that they've been in and they've signed things off for you. Okay. So that, in a nutshell, is your CIPFA portfolio. Hopefully, we've achieved our aim of making it user-friendly for you. We have aimed for the skills and behaviours to be as achievable, if not more achievable, than the evidence activities, which were difficult for some people who didn't do big projects and so on in their work. What I'm going to do now is just talk you through how you submit this when you get to the end. Okay, so once you've completed all of this, and it needs to be, all of these bars are pink, so you've gone in, you've done all of your skills and behaviours to a full completion level. Your line manager has then been in and signed it all off. Same with your exams, you've completed all of those, line manager signed it off, and then your logbook, this pie chart will be lovely and colourful and there'll be no grey left because you'll have 400 plus days in there signed off by your line manager. When that's all done, you need to go to the CIPFA portfolio page on the website, which is here, and click on the blue Submit Your CIPFA Portfolio button. Okay, there's a fee to pay, the same as it was for PEP, and that will tell us that you've finished. We have an overarching CIPFA access to the CIPFA portfolio system, so if you were to go in and click and say, yep, submit, I've done it all, then we can go in and have a look at what you've done, okay, and start that assessment. So that's how you submit your CIPFA portfolio. You go on here and do that. If you're watching this thinking you're going to do the paper PEP because you're already quite a way through it, you also go onto this, but you need to submit your PEP rather than submit your CIPFA portfolio, and you will still need to send that in as you previously did, hand signed and so on. Okay. I haven't gone into great detail in the PEP in this webinar because we're focusing on the CIPFA portfolio, but this section also has the key differences between the PEP and the CIPFA portfolio. If you are halfway through, if you want to try and understand what the differences are and which one to carry on with, you can always contact us as well and ask us, you know, I've got this far, can I switch over at this point, or is it not worth doing? Okay, so that's how you submit. I'm going to wrap up here, and we'll cover more questions after I've stopped the recording. Okay, so thank you for watching, and we hope we've answered all of your questions.